Okay, so today we're going to pull on a cultural thread that honestly sounds kind of impossible. We're going to try to draw a direct line from the world of William Shakespeare all the way to the cool, cynical jazz rock of Steely Dan. Let's see how it all connects. I know. Shakespeare to Steely Dan. How on earth do you get from the guy who wrote Hamlet to the band that gave us Reeling in the Years? It sounds completely absurd, but stick with me here, because the journey between them is fascinating, and it tells us a lot about how culture actually works. And yeah, on the surface, you couldn't find two more different worlds. You've got Shakespeare over here and Elizabeth in England writing these epic tragedies and comedies in iambic pentameter, and then bam, 350 years later, you have Steely Dan locked away in a pristine recording studio, crafting this perfect, polished jazz rock. They seem like they're from different planets. But the connection, it actually starts with the music. All right, let's follow that first link, the most concrete one, the one you can actually hear. So get this, the connection is way more direct than you'd think. Back in 1956, the Stratford Shakespeare Festival commissions the one and only Duke Ellington to write a suite inspired by Shakespeare. The result? The masterpiece Such Sweet Thunder, where he literally translates Shakespeare's characters into jazz. Fast forward almost 20 years, and who decides to cover a classic Ellington tune on their album Pretzel Logic? Two lifelong jazz nerds named Fagin and Becker. And just like that, you have a musical handoff from the Bard to the Duke to the Dan. Okay, but that cover song, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The connection gets way, way deeper when you start to follow the words. This whole lineage of wit and style and attitude that stretches across centuries. So this first path is all about wit, a specific kind of intellectual humor, you know? It starts with Shakespeare's sharp, biting wordplay. That torch gets passed to Oscar Wilde with his killer one-liners and social commentary. From Wilde, it morphs into the goofy, complex comedy of P.G. Wodehouse, whose style directly influenced the satirical songwriter Tom Lehrer, who, by the way, Fagin and Becker worshipped. So you see, Steely Dan's dense, ironic, darkly funny lyrics, they didn't just appear out of nowhere. They're part of this long, very smart, very literary tradition. But it's not all witty wordplay, right? There's a much darker thread here, too. The psychological depth in Shakespeare's work totally fascinated the modernist writers, like T.S. Eliot, who were obsessed with alienation and decay. Eliot's cynical view of the world then had a huge impact on the beat writer William S. Burroughs. And Burroughs, well, he's the key. He's the guy who mainlines that feeling of fragmentation and cynicism right into the DNA of Steely Dan. And, influence isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it takes a weird detour. Take this one. James Joyce was completely obsessed with Shakespeare. His experimental style then blows the mind of William S. Burroughs. Burroughs, in turn, helps inspire a young Bob Dylan to get surreal and literary with his songwriting. And who were huge fans of Bob Dylan's cryptic, story-driven lyrics? You guessed it, Steely Dan. It's a totally different path, but it all loops back through the same key people. So you see what's happening here? All these roads, they seem to lead back to one guy in particular. Let's talk about the Burroughs connection, because this is where it all clicks into place. This is the final piece of the puzzle.
It all comes down to something so simple, you'll wonder why you didn't think of it. Their name. Fagin and Becker took their name from a novel. The big question is, which one? Yep, the band Steely Dan is named after a steam-powered dildo from William S. Burroughs' wild, surreal, and super controversial novel, Naked Lunch. It's a shocking choice for sure, but it perfectly captures their whole vibe. It's literary, it's darkly funny, and it's just a little obscene. It was a sign of everything their music was about to become.
And look, this wasn't just some edgy joke they thought was funny. Walter Becker said it himself. That noirish, hard-boiled Americana tone they picked up from writers like Burroughs, that was, and I'm quoting here, what we were all about. Choosing that name was basically a mission statement. It declared exactly what kind of cynical literary world they belonged to. Okay, so let's zoom out and put all these pieces together. We've got music, we've got wit, we've got this darker, modernist attitude. It's time to tie it all up. So you see, Steely Dan isn't just a product of one thing. It's really the intersection of these three major streams. Musically, you have the sophistication of Duke Ellington and the lyrical ambition of Bob Dylan. Literarily, you've got this long tradition of sharp, intellectual humor, from Wilde all the way to Tom Lehrer. And then you have that attitude, that cynical, noir worldview from guys like Joyce and, of course, the indispensable William S. Burroughs. So in the end, that line from Shakespeare to Steely Dan, it's not a line at all. It's a web.
a really complex one. It just goes to show you that culture isn't a straight path. It's all these different threads: music, books, attitude, all weaving together over hundreds of years to create something that feels totally new, but is actually connected to everything that came before it. And that really leaves us with one big question. This process, this weaving of culture, it never stops. So who's doing this now? Who are the Steely Dans of today? Which artists out there are taking all these different threads from art and music and literature and spinning them into the complex, brilliant soundtrack for our time? That's something to think about.